Good morning, fellow traders. It is Wednesday, March 20th, 5:45 a.m. Pacific Time. I'm Jonathan van Clute with Stock Navigators, here to take a peek at the various markets and see what is cooking right now. So, before I do that, I'd just like to remind you, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up on the videos if you like these, if they are helpful to you, and let us know what else we can do to help you out with your trading. All right, with that, let's take a look at the S&P. And right now, we have hopped over this sell zone from this triple top back here. The market is displaying some impressive strength to push up past this and hold above this level is pretty darn impressive. However, there are still some things that don't make me entirely comfortable with this move. This is one. We have this long wick here, kind of a shooting star, you could call it. It is indicating that once price got up to this level, sellers just came in. There are definitely a lot of sellers up at this level looking to sell at slightly higher prices. They seem to be taking every opportunity to sell price down. Right now, we are in an indecision mode. Of course, this is only today's candle. It's before the market has even opened. So, whether it really means a whole heck of a lot at this exact moment is for debate. But it's just not displaying a lot of strength here. Yes, it has pushed up into this level, and yes, right this instant, it's holding it, but it got pushed right back down to the top of the zone and is kind of just sitting there right now. So it's still a very delicate area. We also see that the oscillator on our awesome MACD is declining and just getting lower and lower and lower. And price is going higher and higher and higher. So this is a divergence. We have a divergent oscillator, and that is a little concerning. This move, this push up, is not gaining in strength; it's losing in strength. So, definitely something to watch out for. That being said, right this instant, the MACD line is above the signal line on the daily basis, so that is a one bullish factor. Price, or rather, the oscillator, of course, is above the zero line just overall, which is another bullish factor. We've got this beautiful uptrend line here that we are following and it bounced off and have held above. We've taken out the higher high. We're making higher lows and higher highs. So there's a lot of bullishness going on in the price action. But I just see some weakness in some of the technicals behind the price action. Of course, we had also a divergent situation going on where we had price going higher and higher and higher, and we had the oscillator going lower and lower and lower. And then on this last push here, the oscillator really didn't do much of anything. It's almost perfectly flat. And then, of course, we did have the correction, and price has pulled back from there. But now it looks to be wanting to continue higher. There's a shorter term uptrend here. I've drawn the trend line. And right this instant, the 21 EMA is going pretty sideways. It's ever so slightly down, but it's just kind of taking a bit of a breather. But the trend is still up. I can't dispute that. The price trend is still up. So um, it's really anybody's guess as to which direction this is going to go right now. But in the most recent price action from yesterday, we saw price just get slammed back down again. Once it got up to a certain level, the sellers were waiting and they pounced. So to me, that suggests there is a lot of sellers up at this level. So we're going to need to really watch out for that if we're playing the long side, which right now, since the trend is up, that kind of is the direction we should be playing. It's just very hard to get enthusiastic about any kind of a longer term, daily chart level up move in the markets right now, given the price action that I'm seeing and given the level that we're at. On a shorter basis, intraday, yeah, certainly. We can continue this little shorter pattern of higher highs and higher lows. We could go higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, something like that. So definitely in the shorter term, there could be some push to the upside. But watch out because the oscillator, again, the oscillator component of awesome MACD is below the zero line. The MACD line is technically above the trigger line, or above the signal line rather. You can see that here, but it's only just barely above. It's just hanging in there, and it could really cross below at any time. And right this minute on the 60, that oscillator below the zero line suggests that the bears are in control there. So just really watch out. We've got a little bit of mixed messages going on right now. So just beware. Markets are in a delicate area. Let's take a look at crude oil, and crude has pulled back right to our trend line. We've had this uptrend line for a while now, and every opportunity or every pullback to the line has been an opportunity to enter into a long or add to longs, and that is continuing right now. Nothing has changed. The uptrend is still intact. We're making higher highs and higher lows. We are riding the trend line. The 21 EMA is up. The oscillator is above the zero line, so everything is essentially bullish. The only exception to that is potentially the oscillators getting a little bit weaker while price continues to go higher. It's not hugely dramatic. I mean, it's a fairly shallow difference there. I don't see it as being a huge giant red flag, but it is worth noticing. If price does a little bit more push higher and oscillator goes even lower than that, then I might start getting a little more concerned and would want to just beware of longs, of adding to longs. But right now, anyway, the trend is up. We're pulling back to the trend line, and if it holds and shows some strength to the upside, then we know we need to trade with the long side. On the shorter term time frame, we've got a longer term trend line here that is moving up, and price has pulled well away from it at this point, and we've got a shorter term trend line here that has just been broken in the last few hours. So it was broken to the downside, and now price has just paused and is kind of just taking a rest. So, is this going to be the beginnings of lower lows and lower highs? We don't really know yet. We really would need to see it break this low here, and continue lower to really tell us that that is exactly what's happening. And then you could draw your trend line down, and you've got a new downtrend to follow on the shorter term time frame. But again, the longer term trend is up, so you would be fighting this trend if you were to go short at this point. So I would want to be looking for a long entry. Just watch the price action, and probably watch for maybe MACD to cross the signal line. Watch for the oscillator to get above the zero line. Anything in the shorter term time frames to indicate some bullish bias. And of course, you can go lower than the 60-minute as well. That's just what I've got here. So you could be looking at your 15-minute time frame, 5-minute time frame, something like that, and just look for some strength, some signs of strength to the bull side, and then you can get in sync with this trend to the upside, and just continue to follow it until it shows you definitively that it has run out of steam. All right, gold is just continuing its little march higher. After it had this correction here, this little pullback, we had a weakening oscillator with higher prices. And this is sort of similar to crude, really. This is a little bit steeper than what we saw in crude, but not a ton. So it goes to show that any oscillator divergence at all strongly suggests at least a pullback. It's not necessarily a major trend change or anything, but at least a bit of a correction. And that's what we got here. Oscillator right now is still below the zero line. So technically, on that basis right now, the bears are still in control. With that being said, though, we have hopped over the signal line with the MACD line. So the bullish bias is there and has been there for a number of days now. On the shorter term time frame, we've got our uptrend line here that price is following very nicely, and this most recent touch of that line was a great place to see about entering along. We do have sort of almost a double top here, very close, kind of, you could call this maybe an M top, something like that. And so that's a little bit concerning. We'll want to see what price does as it gets up into this area somewhere, and we'll just watch out. Just be really careful. The oscillator right now is below the zero line. Okay, but the MACD line has crossed over the signal line. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. So MACD has crossed over the signal line to the bullish side. So there is some strength in here. That's obviously this big push up here, but is is this push going to last? And what's going to happen when it gets up into this previous high? That's what we really need to see. We need to watch out for that and see what it's going to do. It needs to break that level in order to really go higher. If it can manage to get over this high here, then definitely there is some momentum to potentially be getting up and testing this area here somewhere. So there would be a really nice potential trade there if it can develop the strength to get up there. So can it do it? I don't know. Or is it going to get stuck maybe in this channel line here and start bouncing around in this channel again, or get stopped by this sell zone up here? A lot of possibilities, and right now we're just sort of in the middle of nowhere. You could also call this a flag, right? This would be a very reasonable statement that this is a flag formation, in which case if we break to the downside, then we're looking to extend, and we're looking for somewhere around the 100% mark, which would be right around here, 1242-ish, 1243-ish, somewhere in that area. So just you need to watch the price action at this point, and it needs to either break higher or break lower, one or the other. And you see either of those things, and you have a pretty good indication of which direction to go with if you've got a shorter term bias. If you're long term wanting to get in on this bull trend here, then I would definitely want to wait for further pullback or for a definite confirmation that this market is ready to move higher. And now for natural gas, we'll see what's happening there. And natural gas is still just trying to grind higher, but it's really just pretty sideways right now. Not a lot of big picture upwards momentum. I mean, there is you could do a trend line here. Oops, that was a really bad trend line. Anyway, you get the idea. You could do a trend line here and see if price holds it or if it just breaks sideways and keeps on moving sideways. Right now, oscillator is above the zero line, but just barely. I mean, there's really no momentum to speak of. You can see the small candles. The oscillator has gotten very, very small. MACD and signal line, of course, are kissing each other and just riding along sideways. The trend has gone sideways. You can see it right here on the 21 EMA. It's definitely pointing sideways. Everything is just sideways, horizontal right now. And of course, markets 70% of the time, they only move sideways anyway. So this is not that shocking, but it does make it a little bit challenging to trade. There's no clear directional bias. If I had to pick one, I can only pick bullish because right now, anyway, we've got the low, high, higher low, and need to break higher to confirm that. So, but really, there isn't a clear cut direction on the shorter term time frame. We do have this uptrend line here that you could use, and price right now this past hour is making a big push to the downside. So a nice little pullback there. Price has gotten below the zero line on the oscillator. Not price, sorry. The oscillator has gotten below the zero line. If I zoom in a bit, so you can see this a little better, we can see that the MACD line crossed below the signal line back here. And that was a pretty good indication that the momentum had shifted, and sure enough, we had a little bit of a move down. But again, it's just very small. This is not a huge move. It's just really a handful of ticks. So not a whole heck of a lot going on. No super clear cut directional bias. So just trade cautiously. This is not a really clear cut market right now, and there is not a clear trending direction to go with. So just be careful, especially up at, oops, where's my pen? Especially up at these areas here. Up in that area there, that's your major sell zone right now in the near term. So if price can't break up through that, or if it gets back up into it again and hesitates and stalls and rejects, then you know what you need to do and what direction you need to go. All right, let's finish up with Bitcoin. Not a whole lot to say about Bitcoin. Again, it's just kind of grinding higher. So I mean that's good for the bulls. It's good to see this drift upwards, but there's just no momentum. I mean, look how small the oscillator is. It's just there's really nothing going on, and we've got to get over this 44.15 level here, or below this level here. One or the other. It's pick a lane time for Bitcoin. It needs to decide which way it wants to go. At some point, it's going to do that. We just don't know when. It's been very sideways for quite some time, just bouncing around in this range. That being said, on the shorter term, you can see higher highs and higher lows being made. Although we had this bit of a correction here, which certainly knocked a little bit of the wind out of the sails of the bulls, but they immediately started grinding higher again. So Bitcoin is really trying to push higher, but it's got a lot of work ahead of it. It's going to have to get over this area here. There's also this prior sell zone here from back in the past. It's just really it's doing its usual thing, sideways for a bit and then a little poke up and sideways and a poke up and sideways and a poke up. That's what Bitcoin has been doing. Sideways, lateral moves and then big vertical move and then a lateral move and then a sudden big vertical move. And again, 70% of the time a market goes sideways anyway. It's just easier to see right now with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is exhibiting that behavior very, very clearly. So um, it's a challenging market to trade. If you are a day trader and you want something with a lot of volatility, obviously Bitcoin is going to be your friend. But just watch out for these sudden moves because when they happen fast and they're big. And if it happens against you, it can be very painful because even a small little swing in Bitcoin will be $100, 150, $200. So just watch out for that. It's a very kind of crazy market, but you can see the trend here. It is still grinding higher. It's not a very steep trend, but it is trying to grind higher. So just watch for big picture. Watch for Bitcoin to break either above 44.15 or down below this 31.28, 31.30, somewhere in there, in that range. And if it does either one of those things, then we know longer term that a move has started. But really, until we see one of those, it's just bottoming, which is not necessarily a bad thing for the bulls, especially if this is just one giant bottoming behavior and there's just accumulation, accumulation, accumulation happening here. Then that's very, very good, in fact, for the bulls. And when we finally do see the move higher, it's going to probably be pretty severe, and we'll see a new trend really kick off. But obviously, if we see this happen first and breaks those lows, then that bias is completely negated, and we're going to the downside. All right, that is it for this morning. Let's take a look at the S&P and the S&P on this shorter time frame. Whoops, come on. On the 60, it did break below my little trend line that I had drawn here, but I mean this was a very quick and dirty trend line drawn while a candle was basically still forming. So it wasn't really all that reliable of a trend line anyway. I just thought I'd throw it in there and see if it held, but it really did not. So, right this instant anyway, price is trying to recover from this little pullback here. And we'll have to see what happens as the market opens. Opening bell will be in 27 minutes. So get yourself ready and watch for interesting things to happen. Today is a Fed day. Keep that in mind. That means that the Federal Open Market Committee is meeting, or they've been meeting. Actually, they've been meeting yesterday as well. And today they will announce what they're going to do about interest rates. That's the biggie that everyone's waiting to hear about. That's the big one. And this market today, I would expect, if it follows past patterns anyway, to be relatively calm and nobody really wanting to do much of anything until those minutes are announced at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, at which point the market usually goes a little crazy. So today is going to be a weird, volatile day right around the last couple hours of the session. So just be careful. If you're in the market with live money, then today might be a good day to sit out, just observe and watch. But if you're trading sim, then sure, by all means, practice and just get familiar with what can happen on Fed days. All right, that is it for me, Jonathan Van Clute with Stock Navigators. I am going to go get ready for the premium chat room this morning and talk to all the folks that are in there and see what Tom's got to say about what the market's going to bring for us today. So again, reminding you, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. And to the new subscribers who have joined recently, hello, welcome. Wonderful to see you. And if you've got any feedback for us, any comments, anything like that, please do leave it. We definitely read it all and take it all into account. So we appreciate any and all feedback on these videos. All right, everybody, until Friday morning when I do this again, trade well.